to In Fearless Conversation, a podcast from 261 Fearless, where every discussion is an opportunity to shape the future. I'm your host, Kim Chafee, and together we'll explore any topic that impacts a woman's quality of life, from leadership and personal growth to health and financial security. Join me and discover how a fearless conversation can shape the future you deserve. Hey everyone, welcome back to In Fearless Conversation. I am thrilled to be bringing today's episode to you because it's always a joy to chat with my friend, Dr. Juliet McGrattan. I know that if you've listened to this podcast, you know her and you love her just as much as I do. And today I'm excited to be talking with her about her new book. Yes, in case you didn't know, Juliet has a new book. It is out now in the UK and it will be out in the US on May 26th. However, if you just can't wait like me, then you can order the audiobook. And a bonus with the audiobook is that Juliet reads it herself. Her book is called The Runner's Guide to Menopause, your essential toolkit for strong, happy, and healthy training. On today's episode, we'll talk about the book. We'll talk about what made her want to write this book. She explains what menopause actually is, gives us a baseline definition so we all start on the same page, understanding what's happening with our bodies. We talk about how all of that affects our running, and it can get a little bleak. I'm not going to lie. There are some things that are a little disheartening, but the other thing that is really important to remember is that there's hope. And Juliet's book gives us hope. And this conversation will give you hope. There is so much information packed into this episode, so I really want to get into it. But before we do, I want to let you know that there is a discount code for 20% off The Runner's Guide to Menopause in the show notes of this episode. So listen to this episode, then go order your book, and please, please make sure you leave a review for Juliet's book. That is extremely helpful to all authors. Okay, let's hear what Juliet has to share with us. Juliet, you are no stranger to this podcast. We are so delighted to have you on frequently. It's always a bright spot in my day when I get to chat with you. So thank you for spending some more time with us today. I'm really excited to chat about our topic today because I feel like it's something that's having a moment, which is kind of strange to say because it's something that women have been dealing with since the beginning of recorded time. We're talking about menopause and perimenopause and specifically running with all of this in mind and how it all changes. You've written an amazing new book called The Runner's Guide to Menopause, your essential toolkit for strong, happy, and healthy training. And I'm wondering what made you want to write this book now?
It's a good question because it's quite, well, you know yourself, writing a book kind of, it's a big challenge. So you have to really, for me personally, I have to feel really passionate about the topic and I have to feel that I've got something I want to say or that I can add some value to people's lives on the topic. And really, I wrote this one because I needed it. That's the summary, really. My running got, significantly affected when perimenopause came along, and I was not expecting it. And I just suddenly thought, goodness, I've spent so many years of my life trying to help women into running. And, with work with 261 and with other writing and other work that I'm doing. And all of a sudden, here's this massive barrier that's either stopping you start if you haven't already become a runner, or quite significantly making a large number of women stop or at least run less. And this just felt so important that we need to do something about this, and what can I do and what do I need for my own running. And then I thought, oh no, I'm going to have to write another book, aren't I?
Oh no, you knew it was coming. I love that. Was there a moment that you noticed that perimenopause was affecting your running or even just your everyday life? Was there like a light bulb moment when you're thinking, what's happening here? This doesn't seem like my usual self.
Yeah, I think it's always easy in hindsight. And I do look back at some of my life from about my early 40s and things that were going on around then and the way I was feeling. And I look back and I think, oh my goodness, that was most likely perimenopause. And that was more symptoms of sort of anxiety and imposter syndrome and just not feeling confident. And I look back now and I think, oh, goodness me, I didn't even consider menopause at the time. But in terms of my running, yes, there was specifically one moment. And I remember it because it's a route that I do near my house. It's just a loop and I do it all the time, at least once a week. And I remember doing it one day and all the conditions were good and I was in good shape. And suddenly I got to the top of the hill and I had struggled so much and I was bright red and I was sweating and really I couldn't find any other explanation. And I suddenly thought, oh my goodness, I bet this is perimenopause. And that then made me suddenly start noticing other things in my running and then being able to attribute them probably to hormonal changes as well. I think it's hard sometimes because you don't know what's hormonal and what's not, or what's aging and what's not, or what's just a bad run, because all runners get bad runs. So unpicking it is sometimes difficult, and sometimes it is a mixture of things, but I specifically remember that run.
So, yeah, that's really interesting. So you're saying how it's challenging to know, is it perimenopause? Is it not perimenopause? Is it aging? Is it something else? I feel like that might be something, maybe I'm wrong about this, but it's something women do to we minimize and try to, I don't know, excuse away things like, oh no, it's just me, maybe I'm just not working hard enough. Maybe it's not something I can do, rather than something that's not totally within your control. What is it that happens? Let's get a baseline here. Can you explain what happens during menopause and how is it affecting our body and why is that affecting our running?
Sure, yes. I think the terminology is important here. So menopause is actually one day. And it's the day that you reach when you haven't had a period for 12 consecutive months. Anytime after that is the postmenopause. Anytime before that is premenopause. But then we have this perimenopause, and that is the time leading up to that day of menopause when women are getting symptoms from the hormonal changes happening in their body. And by hormonal changes, the main hormones we're talking about here are estrogen and progesterone, particularly estrogen. And as the function of our ovaries declines, we get less and less of these hormones produced by the ovaries, but it doesn't kind of drop in a nice smooth way. There are lots of fluctuations of the hormones on the way down. It's a bit of a roller coaster time for your hormones, and it's the fluctuations and the ups and downs that tend to cause symptoms. Now, the reason why it can affect so many parts of your body, because I often think when you think of estrogen and progesterone, you just think of your uterus and your reproductive system and maybe your breasts or something. But really, there are receptors, estrogen receptors, for example, in pretty much every tissue in the body. They're in your brain, they're in your tendons, they're in your gut, they're in your bowel. So it makes sense that when those hormone levels are going up and down and the levels of estrogen change, that you do get ramifications and impact on pretty much every system in the body, which is why the symptoms of perimenopause are so vast.
Yeah. Yes. I don't really know how else to respond except for yes, because I feel that so deeply. As I'm 44, I'm going to be 45 in 2 months. I feel like this is the space where I am currently. And yes, everything you're saying about how it's everywhere. It's not just one spot in your body. So how does that then translate into running, and why does it make running so much harder?
Yeah, I think harder is the word. It can make running harder in so many different ways. I think first of all, we need to remember that these symptoms can be mental health symptoms as well as physical health ones. So you might have problems motivating yourself. You might feel more on edge or anxious even about going out for a run. You might feel that you've lost a little bit of your competitiveness or your drive, even if it's only competing against yourself. So I think sometimes getting out for a run can be harder mentally. But then physically, it can produce symptoms that make running difficult. So a lot of women experience breast pain when they've maybe not had that for many years or ever, which obviously can make running uncomfortable. Muscle and joint aches and pains is really common. And obviously, we're kind of used to hurting a bit, I think, as runners, when you get some muscular soreness after you've done a run. But suddenly, if you're getting that without having run or before you even head out of the door, it can make you feel that moving your body isn't necessarily what you want to do, or you're just stiff and uncomfortable. Movement is good, however, but we'll come to that later. And sometimes all the symptoms, like thermoregulation, so controlling your body temperature. We've heard of hot flushes or flashes, as you call them in the US, and night sweats. And suddenly you struggle to know what to wear when you're running, because previously you might have had a long sleeve top and a t-shirt over the top, and suddenly even a vest top, and you're just dripping in sweat. So, I mean, I could go on and on. You know, you can become more clumsy. You can have more chance of urinary incontinence. You might not recover as well. You might have your sleep and energy levels can be affected. I mean, I am painting a very bleak picture.
I was just going to say, my goodness.
But I will say that over 75% of women get symptoms. 25% say their symptoms are severe, but there are women who don't get symptoms or get very few symptoms. And I do know a few, not many, but I do know a few
really
who have gone through this without too much drama. And I have to say, I'm pretty lucky. I really think I am. And making some lifestyle changes has made a big impact on my ability to run and keep going. So yeah, I mean, it can affect everything. You have the way you fuel. Suddenly you're finding that you can't run on an empty stomach, or that if you do try to eat when you're running and you're using sports gels, that you suddenly can't tolerate them. So many ways that it can affect running. And this is why I was like, oh my goodness, we need to write about this. We need to get this information out to women to say, yes, this is the case, but here you can try this and you can do this and you can do that, and please don't give up.
Yes. And okay, so that's what your book is. Your book is the hope, right? That we are getting. What are some things that women can do to try to minimize, I guess, these issues?
Yeah, I think very importantly, first of all, don't think that it's your fault. You already mentioned that. Sometimes you feel that you are becoming a rubbish runner. Please know that you're not rubbish. These hormonal changes are causing issues to your body, but it's not you, and you're not weak, and it's not your fault. I think that's really important. And then I think it's very boring. You know, if I could come up with some quick fix, and I could probably sell it on the internet for, $20 a bottle and make an absolute fortune. But I'm trying to be evidence-based in what I do. And really, it is just about going back to basics. And I think this is, yes, it can be a difficult time, but it can also be an opportunity for us to go right back to going, okay, what is my life like? What do I need? And going back to those basic pillars of making sure that you do as much as you can, because it's not easy, to improve your sleep, to look at your nutrition, to look at how and when and what you do when you move your body, and to look at what you can do to reduce mental stress. And going back to each of those basic sort of pillars, if you like, and making little tweaks and changes and adapting and adjusting what you can actually make a really big difference. The conversation is often very much about using hormone replacement therapy, or menopause hormone therapy, as it's called more often now in the US. But whether you use that or not, those lifestyle changes are probably the most effective thing that you can do, and are for everybody, and can really make a difference to your present, but your future as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm wondering too about the expectations that we place on ourselves with our running. Is there a change or maybe a shift that needs to happen for us in this phase of life? Do we need to kind of redefine what our running successfully looks like?
I would say not necessarily, because not every woman is really affected. And if you are a woman who's competing and thriving, and I know a woman and she's running the best she's ever run, and she's now pulling out marathon PBs, and so I don't think you necessarily need to change your expectations of yourself unless you are finding that you're not meeting the expectations that you put on yourself, because then that just adds to the stress and the load on your shoulders. And if you are someone that's finding it difficult, then maybe you do need to just take a step back and treat yourself like you would treat your best friend, and think, what is it? Why do I run? And go back to those very basic things of, why did I start running? What have I gained from running? What does running do for me? What do I enjoy most when I go for a run? And finding ways to make running enjoyable. And that may be removing time pressure. It may be running in a group, running with friends, going for a chatty run, and just finding a way to make running not stressful for you. And that is very individual, but it can make a really big difference to sort of just examine and maybe change your relationship with running for a while.
Yeah. And that kind of makes me think about running communities, right? Like finding a group that is supportive. And I think it's obvious here. I'm leading into 261 Fearless. But would you say that finding a good running community is important? I think it's always important, right? But
I think in midlife or menopause, whenever that reaches you, I think it is really important. I think it's important for lots of different reasons. I think it gives you accountability. So if you are struggling to get out of the door and your motivation is low, and it can really help you to have people that are expecting you to be there, and also to encourage you and motivate you when you're there. It's really important because it keeps you running consistently, and it's the consistent running that's going to give you the health benefits when it comes to things like strengthening your bones, strengthening your muscles, etc. But also, I think socially, because especially in a 261 group or any sort of women-only spaces, there is much more opportunity to have conversations and sharing with other women how you're feeling. You will get so much advice and reassurance, and others saying, oh my goodness, yes, I know that, I feel that, and it just makes you feel better. But I think for lots of women in perimenopause, they sometimes become more isolated, or they certainly feel less sociable. And we talk about, grumpy old women, and I laugh and call myself a grumpy old woman, but you can find, especially if you're having an identity crisis or you don't feel very confident about your body, you can feel yourself not getting involved socially as much as you used to. And we know that social health is really important for physical and mental health. So I think it does give you that extra little bit of support and encouragement, which you often need.
Definitely. And you said something briefly about the health benefits of running. And I want to kind of just double click on that, because we know the benefits of running, at any point in your life. But can you talk a little bit more about why it's so important for us to keep running, especially during this time?
Yes, absolutely. I think the first thing to remember is that a lot of the benefits tie in with age-related changes. And we know that once we reach our sort of 50s, and I'm saying 50s because that's the average age of menopause. Lots of women experience their menopause much earlier than that. But around that time is when age-related changes tend to catch us up a little bit as well. So we're going right to very common conditions like cardiovascular disease, so heart attacks and strokes, etc. Our risk of those increases as we get older and as we are in post-menopause. So this is a really important time to be active, and there's such amazing evidence that being physically active will reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease, strokes, even cancers, dementia, type 2 diabetes, all of those diseases which get more common as we get older. So that's really, really important. And then we've got things like bone health. And we know that running and high impact activity is excellent for strengthening bone. And so is resistance exercise, which lots of our 261 groups will do, well, all of them will do strength work as part of the weekly sessions. And strength work helps to strengthen bones as well as the high impact stuff. And we know our bone mass is reducing, and it can reduce by as much as 1% a year after midlife. And thin bones can lead to osteoporosis, which is when you can have very delicate bones which are more likely to fracture, and 1 in 2 women over 50 will fracture a bone due to osteoporosis in their remaining life, which is like huge.
1 in 2?
Yes, it's huge over 50. So
oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it? So anything that we can do to strengthen our bones is really important, and running is great for that. So that's important. And then we also lose muscle mass too. So by running and by doing strength work, we can make a really significant difference to building and maintaining muscle mass. So many physical benefits. And then again, the mental health benefits as well. And it can be a really challenging, tricky time, especially if you're somebody who is sort of sandwich generation, you're caring for younger children, you've maybe got aging parents, then you've got work, and it can be a really difficult time to maintain good mental health, and running, as you know, is an amazing way to do that through all the happy hormones that it can release and all the wonderful people you can meet that brighten your day.
The happy hormones, I love that. With that in mind, you're giving us kind of a scenario of someone who is probably feeling like they're more surviving rather than thriving through life at this stage, maybe considering giving up running, or just feel like they don't have any time for running. What's one place you would tell them where they should start rather than just give up completely? What advice would you give that person?
The first thing I always say is to remember that your running matters, even if it's only a very small amount that you're doing, or if it's very slow, it doesn't matter. It's still really, really important. So don't think, oh, I'm not really a runner anymore. My running doesn't really count. It doesn't matter. It really does matter. So first of all, just be kind to yourself on that front. And then I would say, often I find a lot of the time it is speed that women struggle with. They just feel they're getting slower and slower and slower, even if they're not competitive or, racing or that worried about the time they finish things in. It just sometimes doesn't feel good when they just feel that they're just getting to a sort of a snail's pace. And I would really say, look, speed is really not important. And I think our bodies are very good at telling us what they need. And there's lots of evidence that very slow running, when you're very, very comfortable, where you can chat easily, probably even slower than you think of when you think of an easy run. We call it running in zone 2, when your heart rate is really quite low. That kind of running is really, really beneficial. It's beneficial for making all your other running better. It kind of builds the engine and increases the number and the density of the mitochondria, which give your muscles energy. And you can get those benefits by running really, really slowly. So don't worry about speed. Just go even slower. And know that running is really, really important. And in time, because this is a transition, in time, things will change, and you will get days when you feel a bit better and you might want to pick your pace up a little bit. But even if you don't, it doesn't matter. There will be a point when you come through this, and you'll be so glad that you kept going. Take the pressure off yourself. Find a way to enjoy it, as we said before, whether that's taking a friend with you, whether that's doing a different route, whether that's doing walking and just getting out in nature. And if you don't want to run, or you really feel like you can't run, just walk. Walking is so underrated, and you'll get back to the running. I think running is really like an amazing friend to have, because it's always there for you. It doesn't matter, how long you ignore it for. It doesn't get bolshy, or, and you can adapt it, and it can be flexible, and you can change it according to how you feel on the day. And there's not many types of exercise that give you that amount of flexibility. So it's like the perfect exercise to do during perimenopause, even if it feels a bit harder sometimes. Have I persuaded you?
You have. It's helpful. I'm about to go for a run after this podcast, but I have a couple more questions for you before I let you go. I want to do a lightning round, just real quick, if that's okay. What's one myth about menopause and running that you would love to bust?
Oh gosh, I still would focus on the myth that running is bad for your joints, because there are lots of women who experience extra aches and pains and muscle soreness and sore knees and things in menopause, and they immediately, or other people often, blame their running. So I would still focus on that. Motion is lotion, and movement is good. And even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable at first, just taking things slowly and gradually and moving your joints is so much better than not moving them.
Amazing. Motion is lotion. I need to put that on a shirt.
I didn't invent that. I heard that somewhere before.
All right. Well, I'm going to check if it's copyrighted, and if it's not, I'm going to go ahead and take it. What's one small habit that can make a big difference, or a small change that can make a big difference?
A small habit. Well, a big habit would be doing strength training, which is really important. But a small habit, I would say, stand on one leg when you brush your teeth. And we definitely notice that balance reduces as we get older. And that is definitely a case of use it or lose it. So every time you brush your teeth from now on, never, ever do it standing on both legs. Swap halfway through.
Okay.
And you'll feel your brain and your nerve pathways sending messages to your ankles and your feet, trying to keep you stable. We can all do that. We don't need any extra time because we're brushing our teeth anyway.
Right. I love it. Okay, fantastic. Last one. Well, I'm assuming that you still have some tough running days, or days when it's hard for you to get out there. What's your go-to mindset shift or mantra that keeps you motivated or just gets you going?
It is definitely 80-year-old Juliet. She's such a good cheerleader. She's got huge pom-poms, and she's really so encouraging, because she just knows how important it is for me to get out the door and to keep running. And I think about her a lot, and yeah, she's always there. So think of your future self and get that future you cheering you on to just do what you can, even if it's not a stunning performance. She doesn't care. She's just pleased that you're out there.
Amazing. So bringing it back to your new book, The Runner's Guide to Menopause, what do you hope readers will take away or feel after reading the book?
I think probably what you said earlier about it's hope. It's that whatever the issue is, there's probably something you can do to make it a little bit better. That reminder that it is a transition time and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you're really struggling with your running, there is hope that you will find a way to fall in love with it again at some point, even if it takes a little while. So I think, yeah, it's hope, and please keep going, because it's got so much to give you. Don't shut the door on it.
A huge thank you to Juliet for joining us today to talk about The Runner's Guide to Menopause and to give us all hope that our running journeys aren't and shouldn't be over just because we are aging and going through this phase of our life. I will have links in the show notes to where you can buy the book. I will have links in the show notes for your 20% off discount that you can get. I really encourage you to read the book and leave a review for the book. That is extremely helpful. And also share this book with someone you know who is going through this period of their life. And whether they're struggling or not, it's great information for everyone to be aware of. Education is power, and that is part of our mission at 261 Fearless, is to empower women through running and education. Truly, I would not recommend a book unless I absolutely believe in it. And this is one of the books that I absolutely believe in. So thank you, Juliet, for joining us today, but also thank you for writing this book. That's it for this week's episode. We'll see you back here next week for an episode of The Inner Monologue. Until then, stay fearless.